Gypsy Rose Blanker was released from prison on December the 28th, 2023. Blanchard, who conspired with her then boyfriend, Nick, to kill her abusive mother in 2015, was released from the correctional center around 3 a.m. on Thursday morning. And Blanchard, who was granted parole in September after spending 8 years behind bars for her role in the infamous case that has since led to documentaries and a streamed television series. The prison employee told the Springfield News Leader, part of the USA Today network, that several people out of media outlets approached them to inquire about her release, to see what time she was going to be released, so they can get on camera, of course. Now, the Missouri Department of Corrections, which had refused to provide a time the Gypsy would be freed, later confirmed the 32-year-old woman's release. So you want to know the story of Gypsy Rose? Well, Gypsy Rose's mother, she falsely claimed that her daughter was suffering from different illnesses until Gypsy arranged for her boyfriend to kill her mother in 2013. Gypsy Rose Blanchard grew up with her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, making claims about her health that resulted in a series of dire diagnoses and medical interventions. However, Gypsy wasn't actually unwell. Her mother had been lying about her symptoms. Experts believe Dee Dee's behavior stemmed from the mental disorder Munchausen syndrome by proxy, because Dee Dee wanted to be a caretaker. She feigned and introduced illnesses in her daughter. Now, the truth about Gypsy and her mother only came out after Gypsy arranged for an online boyfriend to murder her mother in 2015. Now, Gypsy Rose was born in 1991. She was a baby when Dee Dee claimed that her daughter had sleep apnea. And when Gypsy was 8 years old, Dee Dee described her as suffering from leukemia and muscular dystrophy. And she said she required a wheelchair and a feeding tube. Now, the list of medical problems that Dee Dee related about her daughter would go on to include seizures, asthma, and hearing and visual impairments. Now, due to Dee Dee's actions, Gypsy was prescribed a litany of medications, and she had to sleep using a breathing machine. Now, she also went through multiple surgeries, including procedures on her eyes and removal of her salivary glands. Now, when Gypsy's teeth rotted, perhaps due to her medications, missing salivary glands, or neglect, they were pulled out. She has a full set of dentures. Yet the truth was that Gypsy could walk, she didn't need a feeding tube, and she didn't have cancer. Now, her head was bald, but only because her mother shaved off her hair. Experts believe Dee Dee had a mental illness known as Munchausen syndrome by proxy. And this is called a fictitious disorder imposed on another. And it made her fabricate her daughter's ill health in order to receive attention and sympathy for taking care of a sick child. Now, Dee Dee appeared to be charming and, a devoted mother, so people believed her. Medical tests often showed inconclusive or contradictory results regarding Gypsy's diagnosis. But Dee Dee wouldn't stop seeing any doctors who questioned, she would stop seeing any doctors who questioned her daughter's ailments. And many caregivers went along with what Dee Dee wanted. She had some nursing training, so she could accurately describe symptoms, and she sometimes gave Gypsy medication to mimic certain conditions. Now, Dee Dee was also charming, and she seemed devoted to her daughter. So when Gypsy was old enough to talk, Dee Dee instructed her to not volunteer any information during the appointments. And she was always going to be the only one relating Gypsy's fake medical history. So Dee Dee told Gypsy's father, who is Rod Blanchard, that their daughter had a chromosomal disorder that led her to many health issues, and he complimented Dee Dee for her devoted care. When some of Dee Dee's family noticed that Gypsy didn't seem to need a wheelchair and asked questions, Dee Dee and Gypsy moved away. So Dee Dee claimed to be a victim of Hurricane Katrina, so she and Gypsy received assistance to relocate from Louisiana to Missouri in 2005. And there, Dee Dee continued to bring Gypsy to doctor's appointments. Hurricane Katrina also provided an excuse for missing medical vows. So in 2008, Gypsy and Dee Dee moved into a new home in Springfield, Missouri, built by Habitat for Humanity. It was painted pink and it had a wheelchair ramp. Now, Gypsy and Dee Dee also received benefits that included charity-sponsored visits and concerts, Disney World, just all kind of stuff. So all along, Dee Dee continued to bask in the attention she received from being a devoted caretaker. Now, when Gypsy was 14, she saw a neurologist in Missouri who came to believe she was a victim of Munchausen syndrome by proxy. However, this doctor never reported her to the authorities. In later interviews, he stated his belief that there wasn't enough evidence to act on it. So in 2009, an anonymous report was made to the authorities stating that Dee Dee's account of Gypsy's ailments had no medical basis. So this resulted in 2 caseworkers visiting their home, but Dee Dee convinced them that there was nothing wrong. She said, can't you tell? So as Gypsy grew older, Dee Dee began to lie about her age, going so far as to alter the dates of Gypsy's birth certificate to make her daughter seem younger. But Gypsy was still becoming harder for Dee Dee to control. So in 2011, Gypsy tried to get away from her mother by running away with a man she met at a science fiction convention. But Dee Dee soon tracked them down via mutual friends. She convinced the man that Gypsy was a minor, although she was actually 19 at the time. She's 19. So according to Gypsy, Dee Dee smashed her computer and physically restrained her to her bed when they returned home. And Gypsy also stated that her mother would sometimes hit her and, deny her food. So Gypsy eventually managed to get back online, and she joined a Christian dating site where she met Nicholas Godejohn. And she told him the truth about her mother's actions and ended up asking him to kill Dee Dee so that they could be together. Now in June of 2015, he came to her house and he stabbed Dee Dee while Gypsy waited, ears covered, in the bathroom. Gypsy and Godejohn returned to his home in Wisconsin, where they were found by the police. Now, Gypsy had twice posted the Facebook account that she shared with her mother, once writing, "The bee is dead." And she later explained that she made the posts because she wanted her mother's body to be discovered. So after Dee Dee's murder, many people who know Gypsy wonder why she had gone so far as to kill her. Since she could walk away, she simply could have exposed Dee Dee's lies by standing up in public. Yet, Gypsy had been conditioned to think that no one would believe her. So she explained, "I couldn't just jump out of the wheelchair because I was afraid and I didn't know what my mother would do. I didn't have anyone to trust." So the fact that Gypsy has spent her entire life being controlled and monitored by her mother, she wasn't allowed to go to school. Although Gypsy was of normal intelligence, Dee Dee told everyone that her daughter had a mental age of about 7. When they were in public, Dee Dee constantly held Gypsy's hand, squeezing it when she wanted her daughter to be quiet. Now, Dr. Mark Feldman, an expert in Munchausen syndrome by proxy, said of Gypsy's life and actions, the control was total, in the same sense that the control of a kidnapped victim sometimes is total. Now, her daughter was in essence a hostage, and I think we can understand that the crime occurred subsequently in terms of a hostage trying to gain escape. So, as Gypsy's medical records documented the abuse that she had been subjected to, her lawyer was able to arrange a plea deal for the charges she faced in Dee Dee's death. In 2016, Gypsy pled guilty to second-degree murder, and she was sentenced to 10 years in prison and served 85% of her sentencing before being released on December 28, 2023. Now, Go to John was found guilty of first-degree murder in 2018, and he was sentenced to life in prison. And Gypsy has stated that it was only after Dee Dee's death that she realized the extent of her mother's deception. Now, while Gypsy had known that she could walk and eat regular food, she had believed that she had leukemia and some of the other illnesses her mother told her she had. So today, Gypsy is healthy, and she also said she enjoyed more freedom in prison than in the life that she shared with Dee Dee. However, when asked by Dr. Phil if she was glad that her mother was dead, she said, "I'm glad I got out of that situation, but I'm not happy that she is dead." So who is Nicholas Godejohn, and how in the world did Rose Blanchard get him to kill her mother? Well, she first connected with him on a dating site for Christian singles, and they communicated online for about 2 years before meeting in person. Now, text messages shared in court in 2018 show the tumultuous relationship that the pair had leading up to Dee Dee's death. They talked at length about starting a new life together, including getting married and starting a family, and they had already picked out names for their children. Now, Gypsy and Godejohn eventually had their first in-person date at the movies in 2015, and their second in-person date was when Godejohn traveled to Missouri to kill Dee Dee. On June 9, 2015, Dee Dee was murdered in her home by Godejohn. Now, Gypsy said in Mommy, Dad, and Dearest that on the night of the murder, she and Dee Dee gave each other manicures, and Gypsy put Dee Dee to bed, promising to be a good girl. After Dee Dee fell asleep and Godejohn entered the residence, and Gypsy recalled that she hid in the bathroom while Godejohn stabbed Dee Dee to death. Now, in 2018, Gypsy told the court that the 2 weeks before her mother's murder, she changed her mind because she started having doubt and second thoughts. But after the pair got into an argument days later, Gypsy decided, Dee Dee had to die. And so she told Godejohn to travel from Wisconsin to Missouri to kill her. Now, when asked who talked about actually killing Dee Dee, well, Gypsy said, "I did. I talked him into it." So following Dee Dee's murder, Godejohn and Gypsy stole $4,000 from her room, checked into a Days Inn outside of Springfield before fleeing to Godejohn's family home in Wisconsin by bus. And Godejohn had no history of violence before the murder, but he said he felt horrible about it. He said, "When me and her were in the hotel room, she kept telling me, 'Stop crying, stop crying. There's no reason to cry. It was my idea, it wasn't yours. I did what I did because I loved her, and I really wanted a life with her. I really did." So on June 14, 2015, Gypsy wrote on Dee Dee's Facebook, "The bitch is dead," which immediately sparked concern from Dee Dee's friends. And when they were unable to get in contact with Dee Dee, well, they called the police and they found her body in the Springfield home. And they were also able to trace the IP address of the Facebook post to Big Bend, Wisconsin. And that's where Gypsy and Godejohn were staying. And police raided Godejohn's family home and arrested him and Gypsy on charges of murder, felony armed criminal action. Ooh, he got a prison sentence. All right, he pleaded guilty to second-degree murder for his role in the killing of the mother. Well, Gypsy got 10 years. Now, Godejohn wanted to go to trial. So he was held in November 2018, during which Gypsy testified that she came up with the plan to kill her mother because it was the only way she could escape her life of abuse. Now, no one disputed whether Golda John killed Dee Dee, but his attorneys had argued that he was manipulated by Gypsy to kill her mom, and he should have his charges reduced to second-degree murder, according to the court records. Now, days later, Golda John was found guilty of first-degree murder in June 2015 of the death of Gypsy's mother, and he also was found guilty of armed criminal action. So at his sentencing hearing in February of 2019, Golda John reiterated his motive to commit the crime. He said, "I was blindly in love," and that was always very much the case. So he was sentenced to a life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 25 years for armed criminal action. So Gypsy and Golda John's relationship quickly deteriorated after, as one of Gypsy's family and friends revealed that she was engaged to another man. But she also said that Gypsy's previous relationship with Golda John was unhealthy and it was an act of desperation. And this is a family friend, Fancy Maselli. She told this to People magazine that, Gypsy found a new relationship and it was mutual with love and respect. She's 27 years old. She deserves to be in love and she deserves to have somebody who cares about her. Maselli said at the time he was just there for her. So the pair briefly called off their engagement before reuniting. Their reunion was short-lived, as in August 2022, Gypsy married a man named Ryan Scott Anderson of St. Charles, Louisiana. So in July 2000, Golda John gave a rare interview from prison as he appeared on the Oxygen special, Gypsy Rose and Nick, I Love to Kill. Now, in a clip from the interview, Golda John recalled his relationship with Gypsy, calling it the best days of my life. Now, from the very beginning, I just knew we were soulmates, he continued. Those 5 days when I was actually with her, physically with her, those 5 days were the most intense and magical and awe-inspiring days I've ever had. Now, keep in mind, there were some parts of Gypsy's testimony where she did say that Golda John had a fantasy of raping her, so she told him that he could rape her after he killed her mother. Now, Golda John also said in an interview that he felt like killing Dee Dee was imperative to ensure that he and Gypsy could spend their lives together. He said, "Somehow I just knew deep down in my heart, some way me and her would end up together in the end, and there's no option. We gotta do it," he said, referring to the murder. "I just wanted to make sure her mom was not gonna harm her anymore, and I made sure of that." So Golda John is currently serving a life sentence at the Potosi Correctional Center, and in August of 2022, he appeared in a Greene County courtroom asking to set aside his previous conviction and order a new trial on the grounds that he had an ineffective counsel per his trial. Now, in March of 2023, his motion to vacate, set aside, or correct judgment was denied. And keep in mind that they did say that Golda John had some mental illnesses going on. So Gypsy Rose says that there was one artist in particular who helped her get through her tough times behind bars, and that was Taylor Swift. She said she'd been a Swiftie since the start, following Taylor's entire career and leaning on her music while serving 7 years in prison. The famous felon said that she and Taylor have both been through their own eras, and Taylor's music carried her throughout some of the best and the worst times of her life. More specifically, Gypsy says that Taylor's tunes was a big help in getting her through the abuse, the trauma that she suffered at the hands of her mother, and as well as her time behind bars. Now, Gypsy did spend the money that her father would send her while in prison on Taylor's albums. And she said that she was able to purchase every album that Taylor put out, including her re-releases. So Gypsy says that Taylor's songs kept her extremely motivated towards gaining her freedom. And now she is finally out on parole. Now, Gypsy is hoping that she can meet her idol this Sunday at the Kansas City Chiefs game, and it's been on her radar for a while, says her husband Ryan, who already bought tickets. Now, sources close to Gypsy tells us that she is considering giving Taylor a shout out on social media while at the game in hopes that Taylor sees it. Something Gypsy recognizes is a long shot, and it will be interesting to see if the meeting happens. So who is Richard? Who is Gypsy Rose's husband? Well, out of the 8 years that she served of the 10-year sentence, she ended up getting married, and his name is Ryan. Did I say Richard? Well, this one is Ryan. Okay, she's been in several relationships while she was in jail, but these two tied the knot in 2022. And after getting married, Gypsy announced that the couple was deeply in love. However, sometime after they married, their relationship began getting sour during her time in prison, and Gypsy, she just kept dating. So Ryan Scott Anderson operates from Lake Charles, Louisiana. 4 months into their marriage, Gypsy Rose, she announced that her and her husband were going to split, so she wrote a letter to the family that read, "It is with a heavy heart that this morning I make a decision to go ahead and file for annulment and end my marriage with Ryan, and my marriage ends with no fault on either one of us. I believe we are just different. We're in different places of our lives, and I find it's too difficult to walk a path together at this point." Now, after this announcement, Bachelor star Josh Setter sent flirtatious emails to her. Now, Gypsy and Ryan reconciled, and a friend of Blanchard's named Vicki Lewis stated, "We are fully aware of Joshua Setter contacting Gypsy, and we want him to know that her husband, family, and friends and loved ones are fully prepared to support her in every way. She doesn't need a man because she's happily married to Ryan and she's in love. So she is very busy preparing for her pending parole." And the letter further stated that she does not need the distractions. He is still attempting to email her, and he needs to know that he will not get another response. He will not be allowed to visit, and he has been blocked, so he need not try. In other words, she has no need for him to contact her again. Now, Gypsy is 32 years old. She was born in 1991. What do you guys think about this story? Do you think that she should have gotten the sentencing that she got? Do you think she should have got longer for that? Do you think that it should have been shorter because of the abuse that she suffered from her mother? Now, one thing is good is that she came out of it with no health problems at all. I mean, she doesn't have her natural teeth, but she don't have to worry about her teeth rotting or anything like that. Cavities, none of that. I don't think so. I think that's how that works. But she did not have any problems, so that is really, really good. But her ex-boyfriend, what do y'all think about him deciding to kill her mother for her? And should he have gotten as much time as he got? Should he also be available for release? I don't know if you guys have looked at the court paperwork on this, or you have listened to the interrogations on this, which is, you can find them on YouTube. But I mean, the guy has some problems, and he just wanted to let her go. And I think that some of the things that helped her get such a small sentencing, or in case you guys think that that was huge, not more time, is the fact that she really didn't understand, how she could get away without her mother not letting her get away. I knew that she could just walk away, but she just wasn't able to understand that. Now, he didn't necessarily understand it either if you go by his diagnosis, right? So he did say he didn't feel like he had proper representation, and that was denied. So maybe now he still doesn't have proper representation to get his case looked at again. So this is an interesting case. It's a good thing that she is out and she has someone and she's married. Leave your thoughts about this below.